Sometimes you feel like you do things because you feel like you have to do them, or you feel like you're supposed to do them, even though deep down you've got this overwhelming feeling that it's not the right thing that you should be doing. Being radically honest with ourselves is so important, because otherwise I think we do reach a point where we burn out, because there's only so much we can take of lying to ourselves and pretending that we're okay when we're actually really desperately not okay. We have to stop and listen to what that niggle is trying to tell us. In this session, I really what is bubbling up in me to talk about is something that I think is really important. I'd be really curious to know how many of us here have experienced this or felt this before. But I really wanted to talk about having the courage to be honest with ourselves and having the courage to listen to ourselves. And actually, I want us to just pause for a moment while during the session, and for this session, for you to think about, how are you really, honestly, truly? Like, how are you? And just think about that, because I think, how often are we not really okay, but we're not really telling ourselves even that we're not okay? And this has been one of the biggest mistakes that I have made on repeat over the past few years. And I wanted to talk about this and share this, because obviously a lot of the glitzy bits of business get shared online, but not as often do we talk about the really hard bits and the challenging bits. And so I really wanted to share my story with you over the past few years of making this mistake. And for me, I feel like there have been so many times where I haven't listened to myself. Sometimes you feel like you do things because you feel like you have to do them, or you feel like you're supposed to do them, even though deep down you've got this overwhelming feeling that it's not the right thing that you should be doing, but you're doing it anyway. And I don't know about you, but I feel like so often I've been the person I felt like I've had to try and hold it all together. I'm the one that has to be strong and to keep going. And so I kind of often, I got really good at fooling myself that I was okay, and not even realizing that I wasn't until the cracks started to appear. And literally my body told me, you need to stop because you are not okay. And even then, I didn't even pay enough attention. So I was going to share this with you and share my story, and then just share some of the things that have really helped me to come through the other side of this. Because I definitely think when we're building businesses and we're trying to go, and we're spinning so many plates, we really, I don't know, sometimes it's easy to get off track with it all. And I actually did a podcast interview. I don't know if any of you listened to it, with Denise Phil Thomas. And it was such a great conversation. And we talked about, she was talking about how she had a sabbatical. And I think she just kind of needed a break from it all. And she was talking about how she kind of downsized a lot of things, and she started to really redefine what she actually wanted and what success actually looked like. I think this is the other trap we get into. We think success is a thing, and then when we get to that thing and we realize that's not what success is at all, this is exhausting. And it was a really interesting conversation that I had with her, where she was really open and honest about in some ways scaling back and, yes, redefining what success looked like. And we talked about, sometimes, especially when we're building businesses, it's like we're supposed to keep growing and we want more and we want more and we want more, but at what cost? What's the sacrifice? And do we really want more? And one of the biggest questions I've asked myself over the past few years is, when is enough enough? We do, and don't get me wrong, I do think we, as humans, we like to grow, we like to evolve, but sometimes it just all becomes a bit much. And then you think, what is it all for? We don't need to keep striving and hustling, and that's not where it's at. So it was a really fascinating podcast episode if you want to listen to it. Anyway, I want to share my story, and then I'll share some of the biggest things that I have learned. So I feel like I kind of started to go a little bit off track around the time I had kids. So before I had my son Casey in 2018, the business I was loving everything. Obviously, I had my membership, which was amazing. I was working virtually. So I worked from home. My days looked like me being very creative, creating a lot of content. I would spend a lot of time with my husband, Kellen. I call him Coach Kellen. So we'd have like a lot of conversations about stuff, which was really good for me to process things. We would go for walks with the dog. I had a real sense of freedom and it was really fun. And then around the time Casey was due in October 2018, I think that was around the time I hired my first full-time employee. I think before that I'd just worked with contractors. But I hired a first full-time employee, and then obviously everything changed when I did have Casey. And my world totally shifted, and I went from being very creative, creating a lot of content, to just wanting to spend all my time with him. I wanted to go for walks with him. I wanted to just sit and be with him. I felt like I didn't really know what to say anymore work-wise, because I don't know, all of the everything in my life, like he was everything at that point, and I just didn't know what to show up and say anymore. Though that being said, actually, a few months after he was born, we had our most financial month to that point, which was pretty amazing. Though I do remember at the time feeling like oscillating between feeling really happy and feeling really guilty, and that like I wasn't spending as much time working. So I was in a bit of a strange place, which I think is totally normal, especially when you've like had a baby and you're a bit all over the place. And I kind of started to hire more people as well, like full-time people, and I made some mistakes, and that felt really heavy. Like I messed up, and that felt heavy and challenging. And then as Casey got a little bit older, and also this was one of the little nuggets where I'm like, did I choose to listen to other people rather than myself? So there was a few people who said to me, Carrie, you need an office. Actually, one of them was my dad, who's a massive inspiration to me. And then I spoke to other people. He was like, if you want to take your business seriously, you need to have an office. I actually have seen this quite a lot on Instagram lately of people saying this. So I started to think maybe I need an office. And then Casey was at an age where he was becoming a toddler, and it was becoming increasingly hard to work from home with him around. So I started looking into offices, and at first, like, they were just awful spaces. I was like, I could never work from here. And then we found this one space, and I was like, this could be amazing. So we renovated the office, and we spent a lot of money renovating it, actually. And then we moved into the office, and then 3 weeks later, lockdown happened. And I literally thought, is this the universe telling me this was a bad idea? Because I was like, I always used to say, I don't need an office. Like, you can build a business from anywhere. And just, you know, the most ironic thing about the whole situation is I would always tell my dad, my business is successful. I have a virtual team. We are just fine. He was like, Carrie, take this seriously. You need an office, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, then obviously lockdown happens, and he's forced to work from home. And all of a sudden he then realizes all these amazing online tools. And he's like, oh, I can just work from home. I can get so much more done. I was like, really? Really? Oh my gosh, I've been telling you this whole time. Now I'm the one that got an office, and you're sat at home working from home. Like, what just happened? But I think, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the office. I love it in some ways and hate it in others. But it was a moment of, again, one of those things. It's like, did I really listen to myself? Did I really trust myself? Anyway, so we had the office, and then a few years later in 2020, well, not a few years later, that year the office we moved in 2020. I had Marley in August 2020. And then it's like 2 little kids. I'm running a business. I've got more full-time employees. I don't know what I'm doing with the full-time employees. In fact, have no idea. I'm used to working with contractors. Bearing in mind, I've never actually had a job myself. I started my first business at university, so I don't even know what it's like to be managed by someone. No idea. So making loads of mistakes on that front. So life was chaotic and crazy, and I don't think I don't feel like I had any space to think anymore. Well, didn't really have any space to like process stuff at all. And then I felt like, well, I needed help in the business, so I kind of then employed people to help. And so then I found myself in a situation where it got to school run. So I was dropping the kids off at school, getting to the office, sitting at the office in my desk, then getting home at like 5 and 6 o'clock at night. And in the day, I was just managing a lot of the people side of things. And I found myself in a place where I was really burning out. I felt so depleted. I felt like I had nothing left in me to give. I felt like, in fact, the podcast stopped. I stopped showing up. I didn't really have anything to say anymore. I would get home in the evening and say to Kellen, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't know how long I can keep going like this for. I was in such a bad place. But then at the same time, I was like, no, pull yourself together. You just keep going, just keep going. And I wasn't really acknowledging that I wasn't, wasn't fully acknowledging that I wasn't okay. And so this was all going on. And in 2022, something happened, and it was kind of like the beginning of me feeling like something was really not right. And I had just got back from a mastermind. So obviously at that point, like kids are toddlers, the business is kind of going, I've got employees and I'm making mistakes. And I got back from this mastermind and then I didn't feel well. And I remember feeling so bad. I thought, Kellen, I need to go to hospital. So we went to hospital, saw a doctor at the hospital. It was like an outpatient doctor appointment. He sent me home. It was on a Wednesday and he was like, come back on Friday if you still don't feel well. And I remember walking back out through the hospital doors, knowing something was not right. And I was like, I cannot leave this hospital. Like, I have to stay. Thank God I listened to myself. And that was a moment where I did listen to myself. And I said I need to see him again. They were like, no, you don't have an appointment. So I just anyway went to A&E, and turns out that it was my appendix, and it had actually erupted. And the surgeon said it was really, really bad. And it was so excruciating after that, and with my appendix bursting. And a friend of mine, she was like, do you want to know what the mind-body connection is with the appendix? I was like, yes, I really would. And she was like basically saying something, I think she said something about how it was like about overwhelm. And I was like, okay, yeah, I am very overwhelmed. And I remember when I was recovering from that, I think I had about a week or a couple of weeks off. And I remember sitting down and thinking, I need to have some me days. I don't have any space for myself. I need to figure out space. So on a Thursday, I carved out as a me day for me to work on myself, go to a spa, do something. And I think in that year, I might have done one me day that year. And I remember, so that was in the June of 2022. And the next year, 2023, I was actually pregnant. And then it got to June of 2023. And on my calendar, one day, I saw my me days, because I put it in as a recurring day every single week. And I saw it and I was like, I've not been doing this. And I deleted it from my calendar. And that week, I ended up back in hospital with a miscarriage. And I was like, huh, wow, this is wild. And I remember taking a week off and the weather was really nice and I was sat in the garden and I was like, why does it take for something to knock me off my feet, for me to sit down and give myself the space to think and check in with myself and see how I'm feeling and seeing if I'm actually okay? And I do my meditations and do my visualizations and look after myself. And then as soon as I'm feeling a little bit better, I bury my head in the sand again and I get on with the same routine, not giving myself any space, making the same bad decisions that I know are not getting me to where I want to be. And I go in the same circles. So this happened on repeat. And then I kind of tried to make changes and I tried to work on myself. I ended up with blooming pneumonia. I ended up with more miscarriages. And it just really took a lot for me to actually stop and listen to myself and figure out what in the world is going on. And I think having had lots of conversations, obviously, with lots of different women in business, this is something that so many of us experience, hopefully not as extreme as what kind of my situation was. But I think this happens to us because I think as women, we feel like, I don't know. I think we have this. I think we're very resilient people, and especially when you're a parent, you've got young kids, you just have to keep going, even though you don't have sleep. You're woken up multiple times in the night. You are, trying desperately to keep everything together on the side of the kids' side of things, and then with business and everything on top. Like it gets to a point where we just run ourselves empty, and on top of all that, like. In the business, had all these employees that I felt a lot of pressure to do the right thing by those people, obviously. And that was a big it was a huge responsibility, and one that I wasn't really like equipped for, I suppose. So then I was like trying to give everything to them. So even in situations where things were not going right, I I would always take the I felt like I tried to take the blame because I always found a way to make everything my fault and not anyone else's fault. So then I was just carrying all this weight and this load. And it's as you can imagine, it's quite a lot. And I think we go through a lot without stopping to actually really ask ourselves, how are we? Or we do in a fleeting moment, and then we just forget all about it and go back to burying our heads in the sand and making decisions that don't make sense. So for example, like last year I developed a sales team, and it was like, it got quite big and meet some amazing people. Then I was like, what am I doing? Do I even want to be doing this? No, no. And it took so much courage to be honest with myself and to be like, I don't want to do this, and to have to then let people go, which is a really difficult thing to do. But to be honest and be like, no, I have to make decisions that are right for me. And Jo is someone who I work with. She once said to me that she heard someone say the statement, make decisions for your visions. And I was like, oh, I've not really been making decisions for my visions. And when I thought back on it, I thought about The Office because, like I said, I love The Office in some ways, but in other ways, it makes me feel very trapped. It makes me feel like I'm just sat at my desk and I don't get outside and I don't go for walks, and it feels frustrating. And then I'm like, I started my business for freedom, and now I'm working in an office. And was that decision aligned with my vision? Not sure. And I started to realize like all the decisions I've been making that just weren't aligned with my vision, and also were not in alignment with me and who I am. Like, I love creativity. I love showing up and talking. I love doing things like this. So when it got to the point where I had nothing left in me to give to anyone, I was just like, this is not right. But it took me so long to realize that it wasn't right. And like, I was spending so much time managing people instead of being creative. And then I was terrible, like managing everyone, because I felt I couldn't even see the wood for the trees. And it was just, I was not in my zone of genius at all. And not doing the things that lit me up. And it was just really difficult. So I think that what I came to realize over the past year is like absolute radical honesty with yourself is so important, because if you're not radically honest with yourself, you're lying with yourself. And one of the traits I absolutely detest is lying and liars. I can't, dishonesty is, it just, I can't cope with it. Then I realized I'm lying to myself all the time. I am dishonest with myself all the time. And I'm dishonest with other people all the time because I'm trying to be nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I remember reading this amazing leadership book last year by this guy called Patrick Lencioni. It's called The Motive. It's a really great book. And I remember reading it last year when I was away, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst CEO ever. And so much of it was about the courage to be honest. And I was like, yes, it requires courage to be honest and to speak our truth. And I had got so good at not speaking mine. And I think so often like I said, whether we're working with other people or you're working with a coach or you're seeing things on social media, like it's so easy for us to think that what other people are saying is the right thing for us and not be honest with ourselves that it doesn't feel the right thing for us. And or like, for example, like The Office, people telling me you need an office to be successful. You don't blooming need an office to be successful at all. Like, that is not even true. But it wasn't my truth. But then I started to listen to that and think, oh yeah, maybe I do. And so I think it's interesting, the things we pick up on. But anyway, my point is that being radically honest with ourselves is so important, because otherwise I think we do reach a point where we burn out, because there's only so much we can take of lying to ourselves and pretending that we're okay when we're actually really desperately not okay. Last year I actually I started doing lots of things. I've always done little bits, but did like more sound healing. I've done like go to Reiki and acupuncture, and I see this functional medicine guy. And when I saw the functional medicine guy for the first time, he was like, Carrie, your adrenals are a mess. Your spleen is a mess. Your like basically my whole abdomen, my whole gut, he was like, was a mess. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize. So I've been working with him, which has been really fascinating, amazing journey. And like looking at, like infrared saunas, and which I had been interested prior to that. Funnily enough, I started working with somebody around peak performance in 2022, just before my appendix burst. So my body knew before my mind knew. Like my head didn't know, but my body knew. My body was like, tell your brain, go and work with this peak performance person. And we did like the Dutch test, and which is like a hormone test and all these things. So my body definitely knew, and I hadn't got so good at listening to it. And so I realized it's like really tuning in and listening to our bodies, because they are telling us. And that is one of the biggest lessons. It's like when we have those niggles that something isn't right, that something is off, that we are out of alignment, we have to stop and listen to what that niggle is trying to tell us. It is telling us something. I don't know about you, but I have gone through phases over the past few years where I have these recurring, it's like a dream, but it's not. And it's like at nighttime, it's like I know something's not right. And it's every night, it's like the same thing happens. And in the morning, it feels like a blur, but it's just this feeling of knowing that something's not right. And it would happen every night. And it's like my body knows, it knows. And I keep pretending. And it's so crazy. So I've got much better. Definitely, I don't think anyone's perfect at this, but like definitely on this journey still, but so much better at being honest with myself, being honest with the people around me, and realizing that honesty, I think, is one of the highest acts of love and kindness to anyone at any given moment. Because even from a team perspective, the moment I decide to not be honest with a team member is such a moment of disservice, because I'm not giving them the opportunity to see how it could be better or do things differently. And in the past, when I've not been honest because I've been nice, it's never ended well. It's been awful, and it's usually fallen apart, and then we've gone our separate ways, and it's felt really hard. And it never needed to be that hard if I'd have just had the courage to be honest earlier on. And so that is something that I've really tried. It's really difficult to work on with love, because I always try and do things with love. I can't handle drama and toxicity. I don't have time for that. But I think that listening to our niggles is everything and is so important. And also looking at our lives and asking what feels in alignment, what feels out of alignment. And then also asking ourselves, what do I actually want? Because the version of success I had in my mind before I had kids is wildly different to the version of success I have since I had kids. Only I didn't realize that. So I never adjusted what my vision of success was, and I just carried on going. But before I had kids, I worked all the time, morning, day, night, and I loved it. It was so exciting and it fired me up. But then put two kids into the mix, like, that's not feasible. That's not realistic. I can't do that. I don't even want to do that. So I realized my vision of success had changed, and I hadn't. So I kept making decisions based on my old vision and hadn't redefined the new one. And I think us checking in with ourselves to actually ask, what is my vision of success? What do I want it to look like? How do I want to be? Like, I want more peace. I want more calm. I want more space. I want to enjoy time with my kids. And that's what I want. Sometimes I see, and I even do it, like, on Instagram, when you see people and it's like, go, 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 you got to be a hardest working person, and all that stuff. And you get swept up thinking, oh my gosh, I need to be like that. I need to work really hard. And then I'm like, no, that's their version of what they want their life to be. But that's not how I want my life to be. I want to be outside. I want to go for walks. I want to do breath work and meditate, and I want to look after myself, and I want to have fun with my family and my kids, and I want to do all that fun stuff. And yes, I want to be successful too, but maybe it's not as successful as these other people online. Like, do I even want to build an 8 or 9 figure business? I don't know, not really. If I'm going to have to like be working craziness to get there, then no, thank you. And so I think it was for me admitting to myself what I did want and what I didn't want. And that has been a real game changer. And that's what that's what gave me the courage to let go of parts of the business that I felt weren't really working, which again is a hard thing to do, because then you feel like on part of you, you're like, have I failed? Like, it feels like you're failing, but actually you're not. It's part of business. It's part of evolving, is having the courage to let go. Why do we cling on so tightly to things that aren't working for us? What are we so afraid of? Why? Sometimes I felt like I was like hanging on with like claws to things. And I'm like, I just couldn't let go. It was so hard to let go. And so learning to let go and to trust that it will be fine and that you'll figure it out, like that has been a big thing. And so, yeah, and then coming back to this whole thing of make decisions for your visions. Once you've got your vision, make decisions that are in alignment with your vision, because you're either making decisions for your vision or you're making decisions against your vision. And when I look back over the past few years, I've made a lot of decisions that have been against my vision and I didn't even realize it. And it really didn't work out very well. And so I think it's important for us to kind of remember that. And I really wanted to share this because despite all of this stuff that I'm sharing, which I know it's a lot, and it's very I don't know, it's very raw, and it's very it's the messy side of it all. But I think it's important because I have a really amazing, successful business, and I'm so grateful for the business. I've made so many mistakes. At times I've been such a terrible like leader in the business and CEO. And I mean, that could be a whole other episode in itself. But I think this is the thing, we are where we are. We know what we know. And I think as long as we try our best and we're good people, like, I think that's all we can really ask of ourselves. And, even though it's been a massive roller coaster for me over the past few years, I do feel really grateful to have the business that I have that it has supported me along, throughout this whole process, which I could be another episode, because I mean, that is a lot thanks to having a membership, which I am so bloody grateful to my past self for starting a membership. Because it's really helped me in moments where I've been very lost. But I'm so excited, and I feel really happy as well I feel like this year in particular, I have shed a lot of the layers, and the people that work with me closely will have seen this and felt this, that like, I feel like I have come back more to myself. And I was like, oh my God, this feels like old me. This is the me that will just do stuff and like make it happen. And it feels fun and it feels creative. And that's where I thrive. And I think it's reminding ourselves to spend time where we do actually thrive. And also just, yes, this whole point is just, these conversations are to share the real and the raw bits of building businesses, and that none of us have this perfectly figured out. And also to just maybe share, in case like you have those niggles right now of something not being quite right, as just a little, maybe it's a sign from the universe that you're here listening to this, because maybe it's just a sign to just stop for a moment and just listen and check in and ask yourself, like, am I okay? And if I could shift something that could help me, what could I shift? And what would that look like? And if you do that, you'll really help yourself. And I don't know, we learn the lessons when we learn the lessons, but I don't know, if I had somebody back a while ago who told me that, would I have listened? I'm not sure. But anyway, all these things are good to hear. So anyway, that is all I wanted to share today and talk about. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm glad I did my tea and my Yeti, because I didn't have a single sip. So now I'm going to drink some tea and head over to the office. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.